No, I don't think so. There's actually, capital's like water. It runs to wherever there's an opportunity. And capital gets created if there's opportunity. So I wouldn't worry about that. I think it's also powering GDP growth, at least 1% of GDP. We'd probably be traipsing about at certainly slow growth nearing a recession absent the AI investment boom. The question is, of course, how do you make sure if you're participating, and we are participating, you do so in a way that in the event that it's not just a boom but a mania, you don't lose money. And so I think that's the question, but I think it's great for economic transformation for the United States. In Pennsylvania, for example, where there hasn't been a lot of heavy fixed investment in Western Pennsylvania in a long time, we've got $25 billion announced and committed to actually building out the world coal-fired power centers. They're going to be natural gas, AI data centers near them. That's awesome. It's going to leave a foundation that businesses, consumers, researchers can use for a long time. The question, though, is what are the returns for the investors, and are we building the fiber optic cables of the late 90s? And that we're going to have to see, but I actually think we should, at least societally, we should welcome this infrastructure build-out. Just be judicious about where you put your own money in it. There have been a series of deals in which we contributed to. What's happening? I actually think we've got to step back and look at it in a 50-year horizon, and then look at it internationally as to where we're going to go. If you look at it in a 50-year horizon, basically in the early to mid-80s, we started to see the beginnings of interstate banking. And we saw this long march up until 2008 with mega deals and roll-ups and the creation of the banks that we know now in the United States. And then the financial crisis came, and then there's been a very long lull. There have been a couple of significant deals, nothing on the scale of what we saw before the crisis. And there's been a long lull, partly because a generation of bankers probably had to turn over before we got to the next level of ambitions. But also regulators were looking a little sideways at the banks. And I think those conditions are changing now. So we're going to see, I think, an industry that goes from not very consolidated to a bit more consolidated. And what does that mean? People often talk about the top 5,000 banks, 3,000. That's not relevant. Because the top, basically once you get past Bank 100, you're in the remaining 5% of the industry. The question is, how does that top 100 come together, and how? As we look at the top 10 banks, assets, deposits, you'll find they're about 50% of the market. That is extremely low relative to all of our international peers. In the UK, it's more like 60%. If you look in France, it's like 80%. If you look in Canada, it's 86%. I don't know what the ultimate structure is, but it's going to be something where, in a market where there are huge advantages to operating at national scale, you're going to see more large coast-to-coast banks. We hope Hughes is one.
Going to be $1 trillion.